I meditated for 2 hours a day for 1,000 days. And this is what I discovered. One of the biggest secrets of life from my perspective that really helped me embrace life to be able to live the fullest life. Stay tuned to find out what that secret is. So I started this 1,000 day challenge, not even really thinking and putting a number to, I was going to meditate for 1,000 days. So here's what happened. I was really depressed. I was really feeling down. I was feeling disconnected from life. I was feeling like life was a chore. And I had felt this feeling before. And so it was a feeling I was familiar with. Life felt like a chore and I just had to get through it. And it was this hard thing. And, I was thankful that I was here, but at the same time, it just felt really hard. And during this period in my life, I remembered back when I would meditate. I never meditated for more than a month or two consecutively, but I did do that over many years. And I remembered always having a better feeling towards life. I never felt like life was a chore when I had a regular meditation practice. So remembering this in my darkness, in the depth of my darkness, I made one promise to myself. This was a big promise that I'm going to start meditating and I'm not going to stop. I'm going to make sure that I meditate every single day. And this promise is what has led to this big accomplishment, 1,000 consecutive days of about 2 hours of meditation a day. Some days I meditated a lot more than that. And rarely did I meditate less than that. But there were times where I would meditate for 30 minutes and fall asleep, or something like this where I didn't miss the practice, but I may have made some life decisions that made me fall asleep halfway through my meditation. And this only lasted for about the first quarter, about the first 200 hours of this challenge. And then I finally learned a lesson that really eradicated that problem. And I will get into this a little bit later. So I made this promise to myself because that is the depth of despair that I was in. I felt like I never wanted to feel this way ever again. And for me, I knew that meditation was a key. And so feeling that darkness, I was like, I will never miss a single day of meditation. I will make sure that no matter what, that I'm going to do it. So here is the setup. I do Vipassana meditation, which is called insight meditation. And if you have been on this channel and seen my other video, I talk about Vipassana meditation. These courses are taught at 10-day silent intensive retreats, or courses. They're not really retreats where you're having a good time, but they are courses where you learn this technique. And if you want to learn this meditation technique, follow the link down below, dhamma.org, and you can sign up for your own free 10-day meditation to learn the meditation that I do. So in this practice, in this tradition, when you go to a 10-day course and you leave, one of the recommended actions is that you practice for 2 hours every single day to keep the benefits going, to continue to receive and be the person that you want to be. So from this, that's where I got my 2 hours a day. That's where I got that goal from, where I was like, I'm going to meditate 1 hour in the morning and I'm going to meditate 1 hour at night. And that is going to be my 2 hours. So I started with this. I had this strong foundation. I had done a few 10-day courses at this point. I'm going once a year. And this was the first challenge. Was really coming to terms with what it meant to meditate for 1 hour in the morning and for 1 hour at night. So the first big challenge was my work day, right? My work day would start at a certain time, and I would have to wake up at a certain time before that in order to get in my 1 hour of meditation, get in breakfast, shower, brush, do all the things that I needed to, get dressed and get ready for work, do the commute to work. And so you see, there's a lot that happens before the morning for me to try to fit in that hour. And obviously, if I'm already at work, there's no way that I can fit in an hour of meditation, perhaps my 30-minute lunch, but that is not an hour. So I have to find a way, and the only way, obviously, is to wake up earlier. So that was the first challenge, was to challenge myself to wake up an hour earlier, and actually a little bit more earlier, because I would, snooze a little bit. I might take my time getting up. I might scroll my YouTube or, scroll through my phone. So it was more like waking up an hour and a half before. So instead of waking up at 7 o'clock, I now had to wake up at 5:30. Now this was one of the bigger challenges, because not only did I have to wake up an hour and a half earlier than I usually do to get to work, but then I had to start meditating in that hour, which, guess what? I'm tired, therefore I am going to fall asleep if I start meditating. So I had to implement a couple of strategies to make sure that this did not happen. So I got my kneeling bench. That is what I usually meditate on. I meditate in different things, but that is the one that keeps me the most awake. And the wooden bench, you kneel and you sit on it. I'll link a video or a link to one of those, and you can check it out. And that really did help me stay awake, and I would still nod off a little bit, but I wouldn't fall asleep. I would, catch myself, and I would start to wake myself up and meditate. So that was one of the challenges that I had to overcome, and that's how I overcame it. Now there was another challenge related to the morning, which was oversleeping my alarm, right? If I oversleep my alarm, then this whole mapped out, very time-sensitive things that had to happen before work are completely shattered, and it's no longer possible. So there were occasions where, I thought I pressed the snooze button on my alarm clock when it went off at 5:30, and I did not. I had pressed the dismiss button, or the X button, depending on what phone you're using. And then I would, sleep for that hour, and I would wake up at 7. Now I had a decision to make, right? And that decision was that challenge was, how am I going to get in my hour? And this is what I did. This is how deep my purpose, my intention was. I decided, the first day that this happened, I was like, I'm going to skip breakfast. I'm just skipping breakfast. That's going to save me about 15 minutes or 20 minutes. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to work from home this day so that I don't have to commute. And so luckily I have a job that I can work from home. I have a job that, is a little bit more flexible, and I use that flexibility. Right. And then there were days, though, where I had a meeting early in the morning and I could not have that flexibility. So there were days where that same thing would happen to me, and I would choose to skip breakfast. I would choose to, maybe not take a shower. Right. I would make decisions that benefited and made it possible for me to keep that practice. And so it was very challenging. But from the embarrassment of, being hungry and having your stomach growling at work, or, it wasn't that I was smelly, because I would take a shower the day before for sure. And so going one day without a shower for me and my body chemistry isn't too bad, especially if I didn't work out the night before. But if I did work out the night before, I would have showered the night before. But still, there was, by the time it's 4 p.m., I'm a little more, let's not get into it. But that kind of helped me motivate to be like, okay, I know that I'm going to prioritize, and I'm going to skip my morning routines that are not meditation in order to meditate. So I better make sure that I am up early enough to meditate. And I made that happen. And then luckily after a couple months, after the 100-day mark, it was really easy for me to then wake up that early and to stay awake. And luckily, later on, I'll talk about how this was made even easier when I switched jobs. Now, the second challenging part of this is the other part of my meditation, which is 1 hour in the evening. And now, what got in the way of my 1 hour in the evening meditation was social situations, right? And in the beginning, I had a real hard time navigating, being invited out to a dinner, going to a party, doing this, like all these things happen in the evening, right? Nobody hangs out in the morning before work. Everybody hangs out and does all these things after work. And, the weekends, people do hang out in the weekends on the daytime. But the challenge was, even in the weekends, people wanted to hang out at night. How can I fit in my life? How can I fit in my social life with my meditation life? And when I first, the first few months, what I would do is I would go out to the social event. I would go out, hang out with my friends. And luckily I didn't drink. I had decided to stop drinking at the same time as I made that decision to start meditating. But that I can go into not drinking it in a whole other video. And so what would happen is I would go hang out, and sometimes it would be pretty simple. We'd hang out, I would go drink my non-alcoholic beer or soda or whatever, hang out, and then I'd come home at like 9 p.m. I'd meditate, about 9:30 to 10:30, and I can still go to sleep at a relatively decent time to then, wake up and do the same thing. But there were certain occasions where I did not get home at a reasonable hour. I would get home at midnight or 1 a.m. And do you know what I did? I mean, if you've been watching this video, I bet you know what I did. I would sit down at 1 a.m. and start to meditate. And I would take steps to make sure that I don't fall asleep, because that is one of the challenges where it doesn't count if I start meditating and then I fall asleep. Well, I'm not meditating. So I would sit in a pretty uncomfortable position. I would sit on a hard surface, either my meditation bench, or if I'm somewhere else and I'm not at my house, I will sit in a hard chair, and I won't even lean back against the chair. I will sit on if this is the chair, I will sit on the edge of the chair so that my spine is sitting up tall. I'm not leaning back, no comfort. And if I start nodding off, right, I have to catch myself or I'm going to fall. So I would decide, right? There were many occasions where it was like 1 a.m., 2 a.m. And I'm like, I'm going to meditate. I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to take the steps to make sure I'm awake. And if that means doing intentional anapana, intentional deep breaths, the whole practice, because if I start to have a natural breath, I'm going to fall asleep. Then I would breathe intentionally and have like longer breaths the whole time. But my goal was I'm going to try as hard as I can to be awake, and I would certainly nod off, right? I would, be like this, but that would be not falling asleep. So that for me, that counts. For me, being in a state of awake and nodding off, but like not fully nodding off because I'm going to fall over, that for me counts as meditation. Me being that does not count as meditation. And of course, this didn't happen. It wasn't that the majority of nights I was in this position. The majority of nights I was, at my home meditating at a reasonable time, or if I did go out, I got home at a reasonable time and was able to meditate. There was one story where, after I learned my lesson that, hey, let me not suffer so much. Like, how can I make it so that I can still have a social life and I can meditate for an hour? And so one of the things that I learned, I went to this wedding, and weddings, they go late into the night. Of course, the wedding and reception itself doesn't, but the after party does go late into the night. And so I decided it was 9 p.m. The wedding happened, they got married, the dinner happened, all of that. And it was like party time, right? 9 p.m. it's partying time, and the people are on the dance floor. I was dancing for a bit. Then I decided, hey, this is where I'm going to meditate. I know the party's still going on, but I'm going to meditate. So I asked, the bride, hey, is there a space? Is there a room, where you're staying that I can go meditate? And she said, yes. So she took me, one of her friends took me. And then I went a little bit secluded. Like I can still hear the music banging in the background, but I wasn't so close that it was like super loud, but it was still, you could hear voices, you could hear these things. And I meditated from 9 to 10 o'clock. Was this my best meditation ever? No. Did I go super deep? No. Did the music keep distracting me? Absolutely. Right. But the main point was I sat, I closed my eyes, I tried my best to meditate, and I had a pretty decent session. Like, it wasn't like I was distracted the whole time or focusing on the music the whole time. There were moments and there were times where I was like tuned in and I was meditating and I was like having the experience that I'm used to, right? And so I had a decent meditation, and I was able to be in this social environment. And then when I went back, I had all this energy, this renewed energy. I was ready to go. I was dancing. I was just having a good time and talking with everybody, and this renewed sense of everything, right? And so what I learned from doing this, and for that making sense to me, I was like, you know what? I'm going to try my best to meditate before or during the social interaction if I know I'm committed. So now what I've started doing, if I know that I'm going to go out at night, or, you know, I'm going to meet friends for dinner at 6 p.m. or something, I will actually, instead of seeing if that dinner will end at 9 or something at a reasonable hour, or whether it goes until 1 a.m., you know, you never know when that's going to happen, especially like on a Friday or a Saturday night. So instead of taking that risk, I decided, well, okay, I'm going to get home and I'm going to meditate 4 to 5 or 5 to 6, whenever it is. But before I go to the social situation, I am going to meditate. And that's what I've been doing, you know, for the last 600 or so days. Like, it took the first few months for me to experience all these different iterations and varieties of trying to be social with my nighttime, for me to say, okay, I'm going to either, you know, meditate before the event, or if it's like a bigger commitment, like a wedding, or I know that I'm definitely staying out pretty late, and it's possible to, and then I will meditate during that time. I might go to my car, right? If I'm out partying, I might take a 1 hour break, go to the car, meditate in the car, and then come back, right? And this is what it took. Like, this is what it took to accomplish 1,000 straight days of 2 hours of meditation. And, you know, within this, I also had more days where I was meditating more, right? I would use some of my lunch times to meditate. I would use my breaks to meditate. I would use social situations where if I'm out to brunch and, you know, I go to the restroom, I'm going to be meditating. I'm waiting in line. You know, I'm gonna try to focus on my breath, right? I'm gonna try to focus on my sensations, right? I was incorporating this more and more into my life. And though after I faced those two challenges, the morning, trying to set up the morning so that I can do it, and trying to set up the nighttime so that I can meditate for my 1 hour, right? Everything seemed to start to settle in at the 6-month mark. I was really, you know, flowing. It was really easy. You know, the year mark started to fly by. You know, the year mark would be day 365-ish. And, you know, I would go every year to a 10-day meditation, you know, and so since I started this, I have been to 3 10-day meditations, and it would be, you know, my first year, second year, and my third year. My most recent one was about 6 months ago. And technically, as of this video being made, I've, you know, surpassed the 1,000 day mark. And so the biggest thing that I learned, I was at one of these 10-day meditation retreats. And this is the secret that I was telling you about at the beginning of this video, right? What I came to terms with was death, right? This was something that I thought about before, right? I would see death. I would be afraid of it. I would wonder why it had to happen. I would have fear. I would have anxiety. I would, you know, think about, oh, everything becomes meaningless if I'm just going to die. Why should I do anything, right? I would have this kind of relationship that was strained with death, right? It was like strained. It was going against, and I didn't like death. I didn't want death, right? I wanted it to not be there. And I had some realizations during one of my 10 days that really helped me come to terms and actually understand that not only is death natural, right? Death is necessary, right? Death makes me who I am. How is that? So as I'm wondering, as I'm experiencing my meditation, I'm focusing on my breath, I'm focusing on the sensations in my body. You know, one of the benefits of meditation is coming to understand who you are and what you are, right? awareness is what you start to develop as you meditate. And so what I started to really understand is, well, what is the self, right? And it's a very simple. The self is this. Without getting too philosophical, I know from my experience that this thing contained in this body and in this mind is what I call myself, right? I'm not going to get too philosophical, just, accept that definition for what the self is. But then I'm going to explain how that definition meshes with death and how death complements and makes that a reality, right? Death makes me possible. One might think, well, no, isn't it life that makes you possible? Death makes you irrelevant, or death makes you disappear. It extinguishes you. It doesn't give you life. It extinguishes your life, right? And from one perspective, it does appear that way. It does appear that death is the end and you had a beginning, and death comes, swoops you off the timeline and then you're gone. And so what are these realizations that I had deep in my meditation? And really it was an accumulation of meditating every single day. And what happened was, right, let's say, for example, you're breathing. Your breath comes in, your breath goes out. You inhale and you exhale, right? The inhale has a beginning, it has a life, and then it ends. The exhale starts, it has a beginning, it has a life, and then it ends, right? And on and on. And there was the first breath that you ever took in your life when you were first born. And then there's the last breath that you ever took in your life, which will be when you die. And so in between this beginning and end, there was many beginnings and many endings. Now, I'm not going to get too philosophical here, but there is a beginning and there is an end, right? That's what you learn from the breath. And it's natural for the inhale and the exhale to coexist. They must live and they must die. And when I look at this body, what does it mean to be I, right? To be I means I am constrained to this shape. There's the front of me, there's the back of my body, there's the sides of my body, there's the top and the bottom, right? I have this shell, this meat suit that confines me. And then in my mind as well, right? I have, in the mindscape, I have this confinement of this is who I am. And that it must have that confinement for it to be an I, and so what do I mean by this? Let's imagine that confinement wasn't there. If I did not have a body and I did not have a mind, what would that look like? What would that feel like? What would that be like, right? And the closest thing that I have to understand that, and the way that I understand it, is that would be like being unborn, right? If I look back to when I was not born, what everything was before I was born, from my perspective, there's nothing, right? There's no definition to anything. Nothing is defined. There's everything, but there's nothing, right? It's an experience of nothingness. And it's not even an experience, I just was not alive. And only when I was alive, and from this everythingness, right, from the whole universe, I was created. And this I only took shape when it took shape, when the confinement of the body and the mind came together. Then I started. And only in this confinement can I exist. Because if there was no confinement, there would be no I. It would just be everything. So, what does this mean, right? This definition, this understanding that only in my confinement am I an I. So when I ask the question, when I look at death and I say, I'm going to end, that's horrible, that question doesn't make sense, because per the definition of even saying I, death must be there. And why must death be there, right? And here's why. So, as we all know, we live in the space-time, right? In the 3 dimensions of space, 1 dimension of time, 4 dimensions of space-time. So, my body and my mind constrain me in the 3 dimensions of space, particularly through my body and actually my mind as well, right? My mind is here as I feel it. It's in my brain. It's in my head. And so I am constrained in space by my physical body. And I have definition as an individual in space because I am confined to this body. And I'm confined to this, and I can move through space in this confined state. If I was not confined in space with this physical body, what would that look like, right? I would just be everything. I would not take up space. I would not be a materialized object. I would be nothing, right? Or you could say I would be everything. So for me to be an I in space, to be an individual in space, I must have this confinement. Now, similarly, in time, right? That's the other dimension that we live in. In time, I must also be constrained to have meaning, to be able to move through time. And that boundary started when I was born, and that boundary ends when I die, right? And for me to be an individual in time, I must have these confinements. If I didn't have these confinements, I would just be everything or nothing, right? It would be meaningless to me. There would no longer be an individual, right? And so in both space, confined by body and mind, and in time, confined by birth and death, can my existence have any meaning? Can my existence even be, right? Like for my existence, my individual experiential existence to be, I must be confined, right? Now, some people might argue, well, we're born and then we'll die, but then we're going to be reborn or we're going to go somewhere else. And to that, I say, I'm not sure if there is going to be an afterlife. However, I am sure that even if there is an afterlife, by definition, at some point we have to end. Because if we didn't, we would all be eternal beings. And from my belief system, the only eternal being is God. And nothing else can be eternal. Nothing else can be everlasting, by definition. But anyway, so I'm going to come out of my beliefs and to just talk about my meditative experience. So this really helped me come to terms with understanding death as a defining characteristic of me, right? It's like saying, I like the back of me, but I don't like the front of me. Okay, maybe that's not a good example. Maybe you have like a really good back ahead shot, but then your face isn't so good looking. It's like saying, I like my left side boundary, but I don't like my right side boundary. My right side boundary is not good, right? And to me, from now, it doesn't make any sense. My left side confines me, my right side confines me, and this is me, right? I am me because I have these two confinements. And in much the same way, I look at death. There's the one confinement of birth and there's one confinement of death. To me, it doesn't make sense to say, well, I like this one, the one that life started, and I hate this one. I hate this confinement. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. Like I said, it would be like saying, I like the left side of me, but I don't like the right side of me. I don't like this boundary. And so that is how these 1,000 days revealed this big secret of life to me. And this big secret of life to me is how to be at good terms with death. How to be good with death. How to come to understand it and come to even appreciate it, right? I now see death as, just as I see my body or my mind. It has its limits, but it is something that defines who I am. And it is an amazing thing. Now I've got one more bonus secret going into this, one more bonus benefit that I have achieved from 1,000 days of meditation. And that is in Vipassana, in the practice as taught by S.N. Goenka at these 10-day meditation courses, there is one stage of meditative progression that this 1,000 days has given me. And this stage is the ability to be able to be aware of sensations for most of the day as I am doing other things, And so what this means, if you've ever done Vipassana and you're aware of body sensations or you're aware of the breath, one of the goals is Whether you're eating, whether you're working, whether you're talking, whether you're watching something, whether you're reading, whether you're riding a bicycle, riding a car, to continue to be aware of sensations with some level of awareness. You know, you still give big focus to whatever it is, the activity that you are doing, especially if it's like driving or working. But a smaller part of your brain and a smaller part of your awareness continues to be aware of sensations. Now, I haven't reached mastery of this where 100% of the day is like this, but I can confidently say that 80 to 85% of the day, I'm able to be aware of sensations in my body. And, you know, sensations, very subtle sensations, very small spaces of sensations as I like it. I like to be really focused on like a couple centimeters of my body and seeing sensations and feeling sensations there. So I'm able to 80 to 85% of the day, no matter what I'm doing, be able to focus on those sensations. And this has been a game changer. This has just been amazing. It's been a big boost to both my practice and my life. Because now, one of the problems with meditation is, you know, you'd meditate for however long you meditate for. It would create a certain environment, right? An amazing environment in your mind that feels good, less stress, less anxious, more loving, more social, more energetic, right? And then what would happen is, you know, you would start here, you'd meditate, you'd get to here. And as time went on, you would start to lose that, right? And then until the next time you meditate, then you release all the stress, you release all the anxiety, then you come here. Then it goes down through time, right? And you consistently are going like this. Every time you meditate, you go up here and then you slowly lose it. And, you know, for me, it was like I would do my 1 hour meditation in the morning, the first few hours of the day, amazing. Then by lunchtime and the afternoon, I've like, you know, crashed, and I'm looking forward to my meditation in the evening, and I'm a little more frazzled in the afternoon. Then I meditate at night. I come back up here, go to sleep, feel amazing, you know, wake up, meditate, feel amazing. And then again, about lunchtime, 1 p.m., 2 p.m., I'm like crashing, coming up, you know. And so this wave, this cycle got balanced out. Now it's like I'm here, and the rate of decrease with being conscious, being aware of sensations on some level with everything that you're doing, maybe it just gets here, right? Now instead of getting from here like all the way down here until I meditate next, now it just gets here. You know, by the time I come at night, I'm just like right here. I'm like halfway. I'm not fully out. And at the same time, I'm not like fully up here. But now I only come down halfway. Then when I start meditating, it's easier to go even higher. And so it's really brought more energy, right? Because I can preserve more energy. And that feeling of meditating, that calmness, it lasts a lot longer throughout the day because I'm not depleting my reserves as quickly, you know? And that is a bonus gift. All right, if you found this useful, please subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment, and I hope that you also meditate for 1,000 days. All right, take care.